By abusing the way room transitions work in Super Mario Bros. 2, you can prevent the game from loading the Mauser fight in level 1-3. In fact, you can complete all of World 1 without fighting a single boss, Birdo included. This video is going to be a throwback to a video I made over 9 years ago. We'll get to see how the game links doors and vines together between rooms, as well as a flaw in how the current level is kept track of. Retro Game Mechanics Explained is brought to you by its YouTube members, Patreon supporters, and viewers like you. Thank you. First, let's look at how room transitions work. There are several different types of transitions to get from one area to the next. Within the level layout, you can find doors, vines, and jars. There are also potions that let you create doors to subspace, which are handled differently to normal doors, rockets that blast you up to the next room, as well as the hawk mouth at the end of each level that takes you to the next level. Jars and subspace doors are out of the scope of this video, so we'll focus on just normal doors, vines, rockets, and hawk mouth. A level's layout data consists of a big list of objects. If you've watched my video series on the Super Mario Bros. 1 level format, you'll know what I'm talking about. Maybe I'll make a SMB2 level format video in the future, but now I have to focus on the doors. Doors, vines, and hawkmouth are their own separate objects that you can find in a level. However, none of them explicitly defined where they take you. There's a separate object that is specifically used for level transitions. This one is a bit different than its SMB1 counterpart, however. Whenever there's one of these level transition objects in the level data, an entry is made into a special level exit table. Under normal circumstances, there will be one level transition object per door, vine, or hawkmouth. This isn't strictly enforced, however. One of these objects can be inserted into the level without a corresponding level transition, like ordinary vines and ladders, but we'll find out later what happens when this extra level transition object is missing. Let's look at this level exit table though, since it will be crucial for understanding how we'll be able to jump from one level to another without beating the bosses. One screen's worth of level layout takes up 16 tiles across and 15 tiles vertically. Each area in a level can take up to 10 screens, either horizontally or vertically. I'll be overlaying this 16 by 15 tile grid on top of levels from here on out, and I'll number each screen starting from 0 for the leftmost or topmost screen. There are 20 bytes in memory that hold this level exit table. It is split into 10 entries, one for each of the possible screens in the level. Each entry holds the location to warp to whenever any kind of transition object is used. This sets some limitations on objects like doors and vines. All transition objects on the same screen will always go to the same area. As long as you ignore jars and subspace doors, again, those are special. Each screen is assigned 2 bytes. The first byte holds the level ID to transition to. Each of the 20 levels are given a unique ID from 0 to 19. For doors and vines, these should be the same ID as the level you are currently in. However, hawkmouth uses transitions to move you from one level to the next, in which case the level ID will be different. The second byte is split in half. The upper nibble holds the room ID within the level to transition to. Each level can have multiple different rooms, and again, these are given a unique ID from 0 onwards per level. The lower nibble just holds the target screen number within that room. Let's look at a couple of examples. This first door you go in at the start of 1-1 is located on screen number 3 of this room. If we look at the fourth entry of the level exit table, it shows 0, 2, 0. The first byte is 0, so we know we're in level 1-1 still. The room ID is 2, which corresponds to the main section of the level. And the screen ID is 0, which is the first screen in the room. And sure enough, that's where we get sent. In this area with Birdo, the hawkmouth is found on screen number 2. Looking at the third entry of the level exit table, we get 1, 0, 0. This looks like the level with ID 1, or 1-2, and then room 0 and screen 0, which is the very start of the level. Now you may have wondered, how does the game know where within the screen to place you? This is a bit more complicated since it's not defined within the level layout, at least not directly. Door and vine transitions will take your character's X position within the screen and reverse it. That becomes the new X position after going through to the next room. It's really easy to see this with that first door in 1-1. On this side, we see that the door is one tile away from the right edge of the screen. And sure enough, the door on the other side is one tile away from the left edge of the screen. This makes it possible to have two doors or vines go to different places even if they're on the same screen. They just have to go on the same screen within a room, but they can be in different locations. You can observe this in level 6-3 at the huge door. The game places you at the corresponding half of the door, since it's 2 tiles big. As for the Y position, the game is quite smart. For doors, the game will start from the bottom of the screen looking for another matching door and stop once it finds one. So if there were somehow 2 doors on top of each other, you'd always go to the bottom one. If there is no door found on this vertical column, the game triggers a failsafe and just spits you out directly in the middle of the screen. As for vines, your player's Y position is reversed as well. That is to say, if you climb a vine off the top of one screen, you will emerge from the bottom of the next one. There is no failsafe for these, however, and if there is no vine or ladder in this precise location, your character will end up climbing on thin air or stuck within a wall. A rocket will place your player in the middle of the screen at this exact height. They're then stuck there in a special state and invisible until just before the rocket explodes. Hawkmouth level transitions and door transitions after a boss always spit you out right in the middle of the screen. Similar to doors, the game scans up from the bottom of the screen to find the first available spot to start, that is an open space. Here are another couple examples. Climbing up this vine that is 2 tiles from the right side of screen number 9 in 1-1 will put you at level ID 0, 1-1, room 1, climbing up from the bottom of screen number 3, 2 tiles from the left. Here's an interesting one you may have seen in a speedrun. This room in 1-1 has a level transition on screen number 0 that goes to level 0, 1-1 again, room 5, screen 4. You're intended to take the door. This door is 5 tiles from the left side of the screen, so you'll come out on the other side 5 tiles from the right. However, using a glitch, which I'll explain later, it's a key part of everything, we can use this ladder to transition off the bottom of the screen. It's 8 tiles from the left side of the screen, so we'll come out 8 tiles from the right side. We'll come out from the top of the screen even though there is no ladder there. Much faster than using the bombs to unlock the door. Just a couple other things to know about this level exit table. First, none of these entries are truly ever empty. When zeroed out, they correspond to level 0, room 0, screen 0, the very beginning of the game. Second, the entries are only updated when you transition into a new room. During the transition is when the entire level is loaded into memory, and this includes each of the transition objects. However, if a screen doesn't have a transition assigned to it in this new room, that doesn't mean it's erased. That means that, thirdly, all level exit table entries will stay in memory until another entry overwrites it. This is pretty important because it means that old entries from previous levels will still be in memory as you traverse through the game. Normally, this doesn't cause any problems because there is no way to activate a level transition unless there's a door or vine or something else that was designed to be there. Well, just as you saw with that ladder clip, there are ways to activate a room transition unintentionally. And if you can perform this glitch on a screen that contains an old level exit entry, you can warp around to different rooms and levels. This glitch allows you to climb a ladder or vine below the floor it rests on, and triggers a level transition if it's near enough to the bottom of the level. There are 2 ways to clip through the floor and ride the ladder all the way down. The first is to have an object crush your character and essentially push you down. Any throwable object that has a hitbox, like enemies, keys, and potions, will work, but vegetables will not. The timing can be pretty tight, and it's not too difficult to do as long as you have enough space. Counterintuitively, you have to be pressing up to clip through. While you are holding up, the game will only check for a valid climbable tile above your player, since normally, if you hold up on a ladder, you will be moving up. Collision isn't even checked for below your character at this point, which is why having the object push you down while holding up lets you clip through the ground. The damage animations can cause some issues since some hitboxes are disabled for their duration, so if you're using an enemy to do this and you only have 2 health, it helps to take damage first, then try the clip while you still have invincibility frames. It's super easy to try this in 1-1 right at the start with the potion. The entire level exit table is initialized to all zeros at the start of the game, so if no transition has been assigned to a screen yet, it will always go back up to the very start of the game again. The second way to clip through is to use the power of the stopwatch. Dig up 4 large veggies, and the 5th one will be a stopwatch instead. Use this near the vine or ladder in question, and pick up a frozen enemy. Stand by the vine, and then throw the enemy right before the stopwatch runs out so that it gets stuck right underneath inside the ground. Jump on it a few times until you notice you're standing below the ground, and then pick up the enemy again, and you'll be stuck instead. From here, you're close enough to the edge of the screen that you can press up or down, and the game will force you down the ladder. You can also do the inverse of this glitch and just duck jump into the top of a ladder that is connected to the ceiling, and press up to clip through pretty easily. Okay, let's see how we can use this to skip past Birdo. The general strategy is to load a room so that we load the appropriate room transition into the level exit table, and then instead of taking that transition normally, we glitch into it from a different room. So the first thing we need to do is load the transition to level 1-2. All we need to do that is enter the room with Birdo. May as well glitch into that room since it's faster. This will put a level transition in the 3rd entry of the exit table. The Hawkmouth is on screen number 2 in this room, but we won't be using that. We can instead try to force a glitch transition on screen number 2 of another room. We just need to make sure that this entry doesn't get overwritten by anything, so we can't enter another room that has a door or vine on its 3rd screen. We don't really need to do anything in this room, so we can exit immediately after. Note that we can't just go back in the door to return to the room we were just in, since it has a door on its screen number 2, so we have to leave the other way. The vine at the start of the level I've been showing this whole time is on screen number 2, so we can just use that to force that transition. And just like that, we're in 1-2. 1 Birdo skipped. We'll do the same sort of thing to skip the next Birdo. First, just beeline to the end so that we load the room with the transition to level 1-3. This room just happens to also have its exit to the next level on screen number 2. We have to backtrack again to find a glitch transition on this level's 3rd screen. The main room is quite empty on its 3rd screen, but maybe the cave room will yield something. We have to use the jar on the 4th screen to get the key to unlock the door on the 5th screen. And it's at this point we have a good news, good news situation. The good news is that this room has a ladder on the ground that we can glitch through. But bad news, it's on screen number 1, 3 tiles short of screen number 2. But good news, that doesn't actually matter. We just have to take a bit of a tour. If we try to glitch through this ladder right now, we'll be taken back to 1-1 in the lower cave area. And even though we're so close to the edge, we're actually completely stuck. There are 2 ways to fix this. The only reason this area's transition got loaded is because we entered the above cave section to shortcut to Birdo. We could have just taken the long way, both up and down, and this level exit entry would have still been the default 0-0 at this point. We would have warped to the very start of the game again, which is great because then we could just perform the vine clip at the start of the next room on that room's 3rd screen, easy peasy. But that's boring, so here's a quick detour we could have made to make this warp not end up with us being stuck. After visiting the first Birdo to load the 1-2 transition, if we just made a small pit stop in this lower door, we could have loaded the level transition on screen number 1 that leads to screen 7 of the main room of 1-1. In fact, the same transition that we used to exit this little room. Then, when we finally make it to the cave area of 1-2, this ladder clip would have warped us to screen 7 of room 2 of 1-1, instead of screen 0 of room 4. Then we can make our way back to the vine on screen number 2. Once we do that, we'll find ourselves at the start of level 1-3 with still no Birdos defeated. Now, how do we skip the bosses in this level? Well, it turns out this level just doesn't have a Birdo. Mauser is the only boss. And it looks like no one's home. If you play through the level, you'll notice that this door was left unlocked too. Normally, you have to go to the top of this room to get a key and bring it all the way down. Pick up the orb at the end of this room, and ta-da! Easiest part of the entire trick. Where did Mauser go? It turns out that Mauser missing, and the door already being unlocked, has to do with how we have manipulated the game to get here. The game uses 3 variables to help control what level you're on. And surprise, surprise, it doesn't do a perfect job of keeping all of them consistent with one another. First, there's the current level you're on. I'll denote this one as L. This is the level ID I mentioned earlier, so 0 through 19 for each of the game's 20 levels. Then there's the current world you're on. I'll make this one W. This one is pretty straightforward. Just know that the first world is internally known as World 0. In general, you just divide the level ID by 3 and toss out the remainder to get the world number. Then the final variable we'll call S, the current level within the world you're on. This one is normally limited to 0 through 2, again off by 1. This is that remainder you tossed out to get the world number. The world number and current level within world number are completely dependent on the current level ID number. There's no reason these should ever be desynced from one another. Well, it turns out that's exactly just what happens. Let's walk through what happens at the end of each level. At the very start of the game, L, W, and S are all initialized to 0, which corresponds to 1-1. Over the course of a level, L can be updated with the level ID of each room transition you take. Under normal circumstances, this should never change L, since you should be staying in the same level. However, as we'll see in just a bit, this room transition routine is used in more general cases, so that's why L can be updated here. Once you beat a level by entering Hawkmouth, the game checks if you are in the final level of a world. It does this by checking if S is greater than or equal to 2. This would correspond to one of the X-3 levels, the levels that have bosses at the end. If so, the game will just take the level transition like any other door or vine, advancing to the boss's room. Otherwise, it intercepts the transition and starts the slots bonus game. When a boss is defeated, it starts the slots bonus game as well, but no transition is taken. The boss rooms typically don't have level transitions set up to go to the next world. After the bonus game is done, both paths converge. This time, the game checks if you were in the final level of a world again, but this time it does so by checking L against a table of values. This table just denotes the level ID of the first level in each world. In the final game, these ended up as being just multiples of 3, with the exception of the final entry of 20. This is needed since the way it checks is by using W as an index into this table plus 1. Then it takes that value and subtracts 1 and compares it to L. For example, level 3-3 has ID number 8, so L equals 8. In this case, W and S both equal 2. We take W plus 1 to get 3, the new potential world index, take the fourth entry of this table, which is 9, and subtract 1 to get 8. Since this is the same as L, we know that level 3-3 is the last level of a world. If these numbers match, then W is incremented by 1 to progress to the next world. Then the proper level ID is fetched from the same table by using this new W as an index. In our example, W is now 3, so the fourth entry is 9. At this point, the new level is prepared. If you're thinking this is a very convoluted way of doing things, you're quite right. It seems like this routine was prepared to deal with worlds of varying lengths. Now, if we were not in the last level of a world, then the following is done instead. First, the level transition that was intercepted by the hawkmouth is carried out behind the scenes. This updates L to the new level ID. This is the only place where this value normally gets incremented to the next level. Next, W is updated to match with the new L value. Under normal circumstances, this should never do anything. Since this branch is only taken specifically when we're still in the same world, W should never change here. However, since W is the value that is used to set up the level's graphics and tileset, I guess extra measures were taken to ensure this value was always a sensible value no matter what. Note that world warps, using the jars, don't use level transitions and function similarly to beating a boss. The new world is prepared in a completely different manner. At this point, both branches converge again to properly update S. This is done by indexing this table again at W and subtracting this from L. This will give us the remainder, which is how far into this world this particular level is. Now, where does all this mess up when warping around with the vine clips? Well, if you look here, the only way we can take the path that leads to a boss is by entering Hawkmouth. And we have to be in an X-3 level, that is, S must be 2. However, the only time S is updated is in the intermission between levels, right after the bonus game. If we never play a bonus game, then S will always stay the same. Same for W, it only gets updated at the intermission. Now L gets updated for every level transition we take, but it's S that determines if we go to a boss, not L. Essentially, the game is treating us warping around all of World 1 as still being contained within 1-1. And 1-1 doesn't end with a boss, so it doesn't show one. But when we finally complete the level, it determines that it is time to increment W, since L was incremented to 2 due to the level transitions we took. As cool as it would be to keep going and see how far you can get without beating a boss, it ends at 2-1. This level, and really most levels after World 1, have a lack of vines and ladders, so there's no real shot at any wrong warps. There is a third way of triggering a wrong warp as well, but you need a red door in a specific place in a vertical room to do it. If you can get the screen to scroll on the same frame you enter the door, the game will let you move your character during the door animation. In 2-3, you can do it on this locked door and move away from the door to reveal the no door found failsafe as the game plops you right in the middle of the room. If you move to a different screen in the level, the game will look up the entry in the exit table of your new position instead of the screen where the door is. This is used in the speedrun to jump to the Mauser fight in 3-3 quickly right after grabbing a Starman, leading to a very quick kill. That's all for now. Let me know if that Mario 2 level format video sounds interesting. I created a level viewer program that decodes each level's data to make all the level maps for this video, so I've already untangled the level format myself. It's a lot simpler than Super Mario Bros. 1 though, so it might be a quick one. Anyhow, a huge shout out to all of my patrons and channel members for the support, despite the low video content lately. And thank you for watching all the way to the end.